A warm welcome to everyone here at the M365 UK. It's the first one for this year, I'm the main organizer here. So we got two great speakers, community guys, constantly giving up their time on all things Microsoft 365. So we got about 2 hours. In between, we got about a 10-minute break, and we'll try and use that to maybe field out some questions you may have on anything around Copilot. So pretty much, the two sessions, as you probably know from the registration, we've got everything about Copilot. So first one is from Pieter of Beéck from Belgium. In fact, he's a new MVP. So congratulations on that, Pieter. So he's got a session around the ROI side of things of the Copilot. So, I think we can all come up with calculations of all sorts, and there's different ways to sell it to the business to try and embed Copilot AI capabilities. So looking forward to that session from Pieter, and he's in fact had hands-on with the technology for some months now. So it'll be great to hear his thoughts on that as well. And then we got Simon Doy from around north of England area, Leeds, if I'm not mistaken. So Simon's also a new MVP as well. So congrats to you as well. And he runs together with Simon Hudson as well on the call with the M365 North user group. So welcome, Simon. And so Simon's sessions around the custom Copilot. So, and that's essentially where the real value is, because we all have access to our SharePoint, OneDrive, email, Teams, everything else, and that's great to use Copilot for targeting those kind of data areas. But obviously, the real benefits is in the customizations of this Copilot. So again, we're only looking at around the Copilot for Microsoft 365, and as some of you may know, there are lots of Copilots and a lot of renaming going on as well over the past few months. So we're in the same boat as much as we are in terms of to try and keep up as much as there is with Copilot movement that's going on. So a bit about myself. I'm Chirag Patel. I live and work in London, UK. Been around for 20 odd years in IT, mainly with SharePoint, Microsoft 365, and work as trainer as well in various companies, and work with some gold partners as well to help implementations or even training to their customers as well. So generally, I enjoyed organizing and speaking as well at community events. So you'll find me at techchirag.com, and if there's anything I can help you with, always on LinkedIn and other areas. So happy to help out there. M365 UK, I had noted from today, in fact, with over 110 people registered, around 50 or 60 of you are new to M365 UK. So welcome to our user group. Been running for about 4 years. M365 UK is the social media handle. So if you're not following, then please do for any upcoming events as and when I organize. Always looking for speakers for sharing stories. So even if you're a new speaker, happy to help you, support you, or any real experiences you may have, anything to share. Feel free to come to sessionize.com, M365 UK, and you can just submit your idea or sessions, and then we'll try and get on to the M365 UK. Yeah. So with that, I'll kind of just come to Pieter, and I think Pieter, I know he's been he's a consultant. He's been working with. He's also an MVP in the and specifically around the Loop area technology. But I know he does also other things in Office 365 and space. So I think with that, Pieter, I'll hand it over to you. Welcome.
Thank you. Let's see if I can share my screen, and then if I can get you guys back up on my screen. Is it coming through?
Great.
Properly.
That's good.
All right, so I got the right slides, right session, right audience. Okay, let's go. Very, very quick introduction about myself. So my name is Pieter. It's written differently than in the UK, but you pronounce it exactly the same. I'm from Belgium, as Chirag already mentioned. Well, I'm married, a father of two, so quite a busy life apart from the consultant life. I've been a consultant my entire career for 17 years now or so, and I work for a company called The Flow. It's a rather small company, 40 employees, but we are part of a larger group of 9,000 employees, actually. So we get quite some network, let's say. And I love to talk. So every time somebody needs to stop me to talk too much. And apparently that's enough to become an MVP, right? So I just spend a lot of time doing a lot of things for the community, especially as of last year. I took a bit of a break speaking during the pandemic, a bit after. So I picked up where I left. And well, I love to investigate new technologies and spread the word. All right, enough about me. The first thing I just wanted to point out before we dive in, there are some very important, worth mentioning, recent, well, more or less recent changes. So until recently, any organization, they had quite some requirements, some hard requirements to get their hands on Copilot licenses. So you needed to have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. You needed to buy upfront 300 licenses at once for an entire year. So that's roughly I'll just talk in dollars because that Microsoft documentation. So $30, that's over $100K per year for something you haven't tested yet. And you need also the Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 licenses. Now, I remember January 16 very well because since that day, Copilot just crushed my entire agenda. I don't even think it exists anymore. So it took over everything. Because of these big changes, you could now just purchase through, well, CSP or your cloud service provider. You could just buy one license, still yearly. So don't get mistaken. It's not just $30. It's $360, right, for a full year. And you only need an Office 365 E3 or E3 or E5 license. So that's a big difference, especially because 300 or let's say 300 licenses or 100K, that's a really big bet for a lot of organizations. Now, what's one of the big benefits since that day is that organizations can finally start piloting Copilot, right? It was already there in the name, but now finally they can do so. And because of that, the amount of questions from my customers or potential customers in the market, it really exploded. But there was really one question in particular they keep on coming up with. And it was really, what is the real ROI of Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365 to be complete, right? So again, they could just buy one license and find out, but still, again, it's $360 per year. So still some investment to make. Now, if you look online, just Googling it or Bing it, depending on the Microsofties here in the call, you could just find answers and you will almost always stumble upon this formula. And why? I think because it's simple, it's a simple one, and we love it, right? Because it's simple. It's very, very self-explanatory. So what do we actually know when we want to dive into this formula? And that is basically the current cost, right? So that's not a big exercise. The cost of Copilot. So you pay $30 per user per month, but for what? What do you get? And it's still also a very difficult discussion when you talk with organizations, especially when you talk to IT. For example, it was a conversation. It's not some theory, it's things that I really experienced. So talking to IT managers, they say, well, I'm already paying like, well, it depends a bit, $35 or $40 per user for an entire collaboration suite. And now I have to pay $30 for what? For a gimmick or something that still needs to prove itself because AI is a hype, right? Now, that same day, it was a real existing customer. I also had a chat with the R&D manager, right? And she was talking about issues related to meetings, especially double booked or even triple booked meetings, taking meeting notes, assigning tasks, follow up on action items and things like that. So, of course, I talked about a potential solution that was coming their way or could come their way, but it comes with a cost, like $30. Now, you should imagine the reaction compared to the one from the IT manager. So this R&D manager, she really started laughing at me because they spend millions of, well, euros, I'm in Belgium, euros or even dollars or pounds to R&D projects. They literally throw it away because it's not a success or whatever. So, and this is just for this particular use case that she thought, well, what's $30, right? So good to remember that it's all about perspective, and do not only try to convince people from IT. That's also something, it's not in the slides, but I just popped up in my mind. Try to find sponsors within the organization at business people, so not just IT. So try to look a little bit deeper than just passing by IT. So back to our formula, we know now our cost, right? So we have normally the current value minus the cost divided by the cost, and that should give you a really cool percentage, right? Because companies like ROI and percentages. So we need to decide upon the value, right? I just took a very simple calculation here. Of course, it's just an assumption of an employee. Let's assume that the employee's monthly cost is approximately $4,000. That means if we just take into account 21 work days, that's a little bit less than $24 of hourly cost. And of course, we know already the $30 cost per month for Copilot. And this is not a survey that I did, but it's actually more or less the amount of minutes Copilot already saves in my week, let's say. So approximately 45 minutes I save per week. It's not my monthly cost, by the way, but it's just fictive figures there. So the monthly saved minutes saved per week are real. And if you just multiply the 3 hours saved per month multiplied by the hourly cost, that's $71, right? So if we take this into our formula, you just come up with 1.38, so multiplied by 100, that's 138%. And that is what also Microsoft, but a lot of people online or articles are pointing towards. This is the formula. Everything above 100% is what you want. 38% is what you want. Now, I personally think, and again, this is my opinion, this formula is not the answer, but it's actually more the problem. So let me show you why. And also, by the way, there are a lot of what I call shady formulas out there. I'm just wondering, maybe we can just do a very quick raise hands through Teams. Who knows about the 10,000 steps per day? I see already some hands going. If I would give this one more minute, I would say almost the majority are raising their hands, right? So this is to get fit, right? So it's probably on your smartwatch or somewhere, right? Fun fact, there's really no science behind it. It's just easy to remember. So it was part of a marketing campaign for a pedometer in the 1960s. So they actually tried to find the Japanese character, and the character for 10,000 looks rather like a person walking. So that's why they came up with 10,000 steps per day, right? So don't trust any formula because it's a formula, right? So what I want to point out is that organizations are not just looking for an ROI in percentage, but let's help them to try to find the real value of the investment that it creates. So it's not about cost savings, and this is really important for companies to understand. So they didn't win, and you have to subtract the $30 cost. They didn't win approximately $41 because the employee is still going to be working, in my case, more or less 8 hours per day and costing $4,000 per month, right? So what they do win is an additional time allocation or reallocation of 3 hours. And that is really, really a lot. Let me show you. If you want to scale this, right? So you can just say it's one employee, that's 3 hours per month. What if we could scale this to a team of, let's say, a rather large team of 30 people, right? 30 people, that's, I pre-calculated this. You can do it yourself. So 45 minutes per week multiplied by 30 times 12, That's 135 days per year, right? 135 days per year. That's really a lot of days, right? And this is why it could be a very good strategy to involve entire teams with Copilot instead of random, and I see this everywhere, random, widely spread people across the organization. So if they work together, you can also accumulate the time saved, right? Just as I did in my previous calculation. And they can also share findings very easily with each other because, of course, they already work together and they know each other. Right? And then, of course, you can scale this up through multiple teams across the organization if you get enough money and if you already trust the product, right? Trust the value of it. Now, how can we actually generate business value from it? There are a lot of ways. I just got 4 things as an inspiration. So what you need to do is reinvest this accumulated one time, right? So of course, try to gain competitive advantages. That really depends upon the organization you are, in which vertical you work in. Try to invest in your customer relationships. So try to improve it because you get additional time. This is really important. It's the customers that pay the bill in the end. You could also start looking at new R&D projects, probably some R&D projects that are on the backlog somewhere, which you never had time for as an organization. So now you might have. And this is not just, well, increasing employee happiness is not one-on-one creating business value, but it is really, of course, important, right? The people are the core of your organization in most of them, right? So really important. And of course, you can think of some yourself. Now, unfortunately, you can't just simply assign licenses and expect the magic to happen. So this is why I like to use the following 5 principles based upon, well, my personal experience and the ones from my colleagues. I just gathered them together. So the first one is, seems logic, select knowledge workers or information workers or white collars. I don't know how you call it these days. You probably know what I mean, people working on their computers. That's really important. The second one, also, it seems very logic, but you see, it's not always the case. Find enthusiastic people. So people not only wanting the change, but also are willing to change to see the value of it. The third one is focus on relevant scenarios. I'm going to deep dive on each of these very briefly in a moment. The fourth one is set up a center of excellence and your community within the organization. And the last one is most definitely one of the most important ones from my perspective, especially when you're in a pilot scenario of Copilot, is to measure and adapt your Copilot strategy within the organization. Right. I think I look a bit at this like Copilot. It's like your Copilot ship, and while measuring and adapting it, you create a compass to navigate your ship. So a really important one. So number 2 and number 1 and number 2, the first 2 principles. Also try to find enthusiastic managers because they are the key. We always notice that they're really, well, very often, let's say, influencers towards the team. And they also, in many cases, I'm not saying it everywhere, but in many cases, managers have also learned how to give concrete, concise assignments. And this is exactly what Copilot expects as a prompt. Right? They're really important. And of course, don't just involve managers, but also include their teams. So as I mentioned, because of course they influence each other, and it's much more, and this is a very interesting one, it's much more easy now to measure the benefits of Copilot for an entire team rather than questioning multiple people throughout the organization individually. It's much more easy now to do so when you involve an entire team. Could be a small team, by the way. Now, this is about focus. Where do I focus on? And it's really critical you take this home with you, or if you're not home already, don't try to blow your audience away. Don't try to push them away. If you tell them like 100 possible scenarios with Copilot, they will be literally blown away. They go back to their desk, they get a license, they try out one of the things they might have remembered. Maybe it's not working correctly or they haven't been trained yet, and they will just ignore it, go back to their pile of work and continue working. So what's crucial here is to start focusing on your most time-consuming tasks first, the ones you're doing already today. So think about, where do I spend the most of my time during the day, or perhaps during the week, if that's easier. Next, try to split it up in big, chunks or blocks, as you depending on how you want to visually represent it. So in this case, let's assume I'm all day, every day in Teams meetings, and in between meetings, I'm scrolling through my Outlook inbox, running behind my emails, right? So these are actually, for me personally, these would be the focus areas. And this is what we call hero scenarios. So we try to also deliver in organizations, we try to come up with hero scenarios together with the Center of Excellence to provide, these scenarios to people depending on what type of work they do. I know it's possible that occasionally I might be generating a proposal in Word or juggling around with Excel formulas, but those are really the smaller blocks. So we can get to that later. It's really important that I get to focus on these scenarios first and start benefiting from Copilot as soon as possible. The fourth principle, to set up a center of excellence and include ambassadors as well. One of their first tasks is to gather and spread Copilot announcements. And we talked about this before we officially started the session today. There are a lot of announcements, a lot of changes, a lot of things that changed that weren't announced. So there's a lot of information out there. So that's also the role of the Center of Excellence to gather and spread the correct announcements. What they also could do, and again, it's not a one-on-one truth, but what they could do, and it's really important, that they organize sessions, regular sessions. These could be webinars, could be demos. One of the opportunities a real customer came up with was Copilot cafes. So every third Thursday of the month, they got a Copilot cafe. They invite people showcasing things, discussing things. Actually, it's a bit like what we're doing today, but then focusing on scenarios, how they're actually using it on a day-to-day basis. A little bit the same like announcements, there's also a lot of knowledge out there. And knowledge, I mean, it's also training materials. Microsoft is also delivering a lot of training materials, but they're in many cases very broad, not very specific, especially not for a particular vertical. So Center of Excellence better focus on filter, centralize, and if necessary, generating knowledge. They should also be this one center point to provide guidance and expertise if things go south. Of course, it's important. And what also could be a role, and I think it should be the role of this Center of Excellence, is to track and measure the usage, something I'll come back to at the end of my session today. Also part of the fourth one, again, it's the community. It's like, they need to work very closely with the Center of Excellence. And this is a medium actually to connect across the organization. This could be Viva Engage, because of course there you create communities, but it could be teams as well, where you create a team. I've seen things like generating channels per Microsoft 365 application, just to spread the knowledge a bit. What they also should do is, it should offer a way for easily sharing ideas, do's and don'ts, a bit like the Copilot Cafe. They should offer a feedback channel. Also a good one, so you can identify or try to identify hero scenarios at the beginning of your Copilot journey. But like I say, it's a journey, so you need to keep on optimizing or updating those hero scenarios. And also a crucial one, try to detect new ambassadors, new enthusiastic people with influence within your organization through your community. Now going to the fifth principle, again, creating this Copilot compass, as you might call it, and it's where you measure and adapt. And there is actually no better approach or no better adoption approach from my perspective than a data-driven approach. This is also good to prove to, parts of the organization, let's say the decision makers, that things are working or not working. And there is already a lot of data out there in your organization to use. So the things I've seen, both from within our customer, I mean our organization. So I mentioned I'm working for a large group of 9,000 people. There's a lot of data in here as well. And we were using Copilot since August last year. So a lot of data is there, a lot of insights already gained. First thing that a lot of people or organizations forget is the service desk. Because if I get a Copilot license and I'm having issues, this might be a silly one because I might be the only one in this particular call experiencing this issue, but there's still no or hardly support for Dutch, right? I'm speaking Dutch on a daily basis. But this could be that I'm writing a Dutch prompt or an English prompt, depends, but it also depends on the settings of my office setup, let's say. So if I'm experiencing issues, I might create a ticket at the service desk. So a lot of information or statistics could be found there. Of course, also you can get a lot of insights and information from the community. What types of questions are asked? What kind of great ideas were proposed? And also survey data. I have currently 3 customers using Copilot who are also sending out survey data. So really crucial one. It's important to question your audience. Then we got some standard dashboards in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. There's already a Copilot dashboard, you could say, there. And you also get the free Copilot Power BI dashboard, which you can just enable from, I think it's in App Source. I'm not sure, but I'll look for it afterwards if you like. And then there's this new kid on the block. And this is a very interesting one, which I want to show you a little bit more of. And that's the Copilot dashboard. And it's stored or represented in Viva Insights. Good to know is that these are a lot of things where you can get your insights from, but it's important for every organization to decide which of these things are we going to use. I don't know any organization yet who's using the full-blown picture here. So it's part of an exercise. Okay. So what I'm now going to show you is just a glimpse of what the value of this Copilot dashboard in Viva Insights could be. Good to mention, the first things I'm going to show you, this you do not need any Viva licenses for. Right? So I know it's rendering in Viva Insights, just like your daily tips or you know what I mean. So personal Viva Insights. So you do not need a Viva Insights license for this. And the dashboard is divided in 4 big sections. So readiness, adoption, impact, and sentiment. Now the high-level dashboard here, the first one you see in the readiness tab, it's just giving you a representation of your audience and the number of users that might be eligible to use Copilot based on, for example, the release channel they're on. So you need to be on the monthly or current release channel. Second one, the adoption one, is showing you how many people are actually using Copilot, because it's not necessary when somebody has a license that they're also using it, right? And this is showing you, for example, in which apps and in what ways they're using it. An interesting one here, for example, you could say, wow, 2,000 people or employees are using Copilot in Teams. But you could also turn it the other way around, because we got 2,450 licenses. This means that nearly 20% is not using Copilot in Microsoft Teams. Right? So this is a very simple dashboard, but you can still get insights from this, obviously. Right? Now, if you scroll down, it gets more interesting, because now you get to see how many users are actually using Copilot and which actions they're using in which applications. And there's also this toggle, so you can toggle between the number of people and the number of people, versus the average actions per user in each of these applications that Copilot delivers value. The impact tab, well, let's say I'm not very enthusiastic about it, but again, you do not need an additional license to get these insights. So it estimates the potential time savings across Copilot users. So it's a calculation based on your organizational data, combined with what Microsoft says, their research and controlled experiments. You can find out whatever that is or think about it. So there's some insights there. Well, let's say it's interesting, but there are more interesting figures in the dashboard. And the last one, the sentiment tab, it provides the visibility into employee feedback about the value and benefits of Copilot from their perspective. These are just 4 questions, which also Microsoft says they are research-backed questions. And you can use any survey tool to ask them. Then it's up to the Microsoft or one of the Microsoft 365 admins to manually input the results or upload the results from within the admin center. So I think now it's time to move on to the really cool stuff, that at least from my perspective. Now for this, you can see it on the slide. For this, you do need Viva Insights licenses, right? So it's really important, but if you have them, go look at the dashboard. So at the top of the default dashboard, you can now start comparing usage within the organization. So this is, in general, the main benefit of having the Viva Insights licenses. And this is, of course, really great once you've rolled out Copilot to, let's say, a large group of people. But also, it's extremely helpful in pilot phases of Copilot, right? Oh, was there a question, Chirag?
Yeah, sorry, quick question. In the chat, we got a question from Rob. Just prior to you show this part of the dashboard, some of these customers are not seeing Viva in the Copilot dashboard. Is there a license for that you need to enable or anything like that at all?
No, I had the same issue first. I think it's documented somewhere, but you need to go into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, then go to, where is it? It's probably settings. And there's also Viva Insights settings, and there you can assign roles or people to a role to be able to see this dashboard.
I thought that's probably the case. Thank you. I'll get them to take a look. Thank you.
So yeah, it took me a while to figure it out, but that's how I enabled it. Yeah.
Thanks, Pieter.
Okay. I went one slide back, right? So again, here I'm not going through all of the details. You can read, you get a recording, you can pause yourself. So here you see, for example, a filter on a certain metric. You see in a list, let's say in the grid, you see the different parts of the organization. So this could be the teams for which you assigned Copilot for, or could be an entire organizational departments. Of course, you see in the columns, you see the tools. Now I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. So now you can also filter from the other way around, right? Based on the tools, which actions, how many actions have been used by which audience that has a Copilot license, and compare them. So of course, the trick is not just to compare it and just to get a report, but also it's obviously to act upon it, right? Why is this part of the organization really gaining value from summarizing documents and the other ones aren't? Is it because they have a different job, different tasks on a daily basis, or do they not know that it's possible or how to use it? So this is critical information from an adoption perspective. Scrolling down a bit more, I think this is the most important one, right? Now, there's also on the Impact tab, you can also get additional insights, for example, on meetings. So there's also, this is really cool. So you can see the changes since the introduction of Copilot. So before and after the attended meetings, interrupted focus hours, what's there, the total meetings per week, and much more and more is coming. The dashboard will expand or extend in the upcoming months. Yeah, also here, I didn't mention this, but also you get to see the before and after, but also you can compare here before and after, but also based on different groups you want to compare. So it's all about comparing, filtering, picking out a certain metric. It's delivering additional value through the Viva Insights Copilot dashboard. And if you scroll all the way down, and this is also a very cool one to prove part of the value, again, it's just part of the value, is you compare people not having a Copilot license versus the ones that do have one. So That's an interesting one. Now, when you have a Viva Insights license, I am a big fan of the impact dashboard. You remember the one I wasn't really enthusiastic about? Now, this one, instead of just giving me some rough potential time savings, let's say, it shows you the actual time savings based on the data, on your usage data. And again, this can be filtered to investigate just a particular segment within the organization. Scrolling a bit through them, and it's a bit different here. I don't know why, but if you scroll down, the sentiment is not a different tab. Sentiment is shown on the impact dashboard below, and you get some more additional insights based on these four questions we talked about before. Right, so looking at the time a bit, let's see where we end. So I would say congratulations if you made it with me to this slide. So this means that well, it's time to wrap things up. And I think we can all conclude, at least I hope I convinced you, we can all conclude that the classic ROI formula is a little bit, let's say, hocus pocus. It's not just a simple back of a napkin ROI calculation, right? So just a quick summary of the 5 key principles. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, but it's important. Select the knowledge workers. Find the enthusiastic people, not just people who got a license assigned because their manager thought, well, it's probably cool if they got one. No, just see if they're really enthusiastic about it. Focus again on these relevant scenarios, the hero scenarios, based on the work they're doing today, and try to gain value from their current work, not the hundreds of multiple possibilities or things that Copilot could do. Set up your center of excellence and your community. And of course, as we just saw, don't forget to measure and adapt. It's your Copilot compass, right? And I think, I don't know, some of you might have
Oh, maybe we lost him, or whether he hit the button.
Oh,
Yeah,
lost me for a second, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Very quickly. So I started a couple of weeks ago with a 30-day Copilot challenge. It's just a hashtag I launched on LinkedIn. Feel free to use it as well. I just use it to spread knowledge, use cases, scenarios, real-life scenarios. It's with slides and everything. I'm going to bundle them in a couple of days and explain them a little bit more into detail. So feel free to give me feedback so I can generate even more scenarios on demand, let's say. And yeah, I think the main key takeaway from this session, I would say, is that Copilot is all about saving time and reinvesting that time so it can generate real business value on multiple levels. And that is my vision on the real ROI of Microsoft Copilot. So please, let's connect on LinkedIn. Feel free, and we can continue the discussion there also. Right. So thank you. I don't know if there are other questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. That was good. Different perspective, certainly, when we talk about numbers. I think that was good. And I think, yeah, definitely agree with all those things around the adoption side of things and keeping in tap with the users, so forth. So I think there was a question in the chat, in fact, from Sharon. Will Viva Insights show additional app-specific metrics, specifically around the Dynamics sales, where that's a separate cost for it? Does that data come in here for that kind of?
That's a very good question. I would have loved to give an answer on that, but I don't know. I really don't know. The only thing I know is that officially they're going to launch this dashboard in February. So I can only imagine it's going to expand even more. Maybe someone else has additional insights on that. I see Rob is trying to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's great, Peter. Unless Simon Doig. If you got any insights into that, or
I'm sorry, I don't know. No. Not
yeah,
sure.
I don't do dynamics, or nobody does, right?
I tell you what,
well,
we can certainly ask the question, can't we? So we can ask the question and then try and share that back out. So yeah.
It's a good one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so we got some time left, definitely. So I think feel free to ask any further more questions. I guess we got one hand up there. Chris, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Peter, for the great session. So I do have one quick question. So regarding to Copilot, like, is there any risk for people in the Copilot? Like, if we have oversharing, then like, is there any prerequisites checklist before, like the organization-wide adoption?
Mhm. Yes, yes, it's a very good question, and there is or there should be an entire list of things you should check. Unfortunately, it's not just a really easy checklist. So, okay, we checked oversharing. It's very hard to check oversharing. I know you can check some of the things from the admin dashboard or the 365 admin portal, but for that, and I don't know if I can drop their name, but they're quite active in the scene in this, so they're quite visual. We also work with a company called Rancor. I don't know, you might know Ragnar Heil or Christian Buckley and some other people working there. And they got a really good product, and they're also launching a lot of webinars now on how to detect risky data, let's say, before you want to enable Copilot. So there are a lot of things there you need to check. Also, things like information protection. It's probably not on their checklist just to see, do you have it enabled or not? But it's something to consider. Let's assume I'm a senior manager at a large organization, and I can access a certain policy, let's say a very confidential policy, because it has it in the name, right? So it's confidential, but it's just a document there. Now I can ask Copilot, for example, in Word, to generate a new policy based on some context and based on this particular confidential policy, to share it afterwards to HR, which you can share it on the intranet. This is just an example. If you apply through information protection, for example, a confidential label on this very confidential document, the output of Copilot will also get the same sensitivity label, because it retrieves information from a classified document. So there are really a lot of things you need to consider. Yeah. I wish I had a very short answer for you, Chris. It's really
great,
those are really entire projects, but it's another one, and then I'll leave the floor maybe also for follow-up questions. It's just in general the information governance. You could say, well, this document, well, it's a bit outdated. It was a draft, and this document is actually validated content. Now, Copilot has no clue. So Copilot's using the Microsoft Graph. It's just looking like, well, you're Chris. He knows you're Chris. He knows which content you have access to, but it's really like garbage in, garbage out. So cleaning up things, setting up archiving policies, loading off content to different platforms, Azure Blob Storage, whatever you name it. That's also really important to the data quality in general.
Indeed. I put a link in the chat as well. I think if you got a E5 license, you can certainly access one of the reports in the data governance, data access governance. So that will give you some indication around the kind of things that's been shared links and so on. So then you can use that also to understand if certain SharePoint sites should be using those kind of oversharing capability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Chirag. That's very
Great.
useful.
No, thanks. Good question, Chris. Thanks. Any other thoughts, questions? I guess just while others are thinking, I had one question for you, Peter. What I normally see is that also you have the existing resources in organizations who are stretched, if you like, doing so many things, And then obviously Copilot comes on, and I appreciate it's a complementary service, right, to your M365. Have you seen anything around that, with your customers in terms of how they deal with that? Because I think the things you covered, which is great, having that center of excellence and the key champions who can drive these good practices and everything else. But do you see that there's a load going on, where service desks perhaps are feeling overwhelmed with this?
It's a good one. It's shifting over things within an organization, that's for sure. But you're mentioning service desk. If you look at, for example, using formulas in Excel through Copilot, it's also explaining the formula. It's also generating the formula for you. So it could probably save service desk some time here and there. But yeah, it's it's a good question, by the way. It's a tough one.
No, sure.
So I was also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but yeah, whatever. So I was, like I said, I was part of the early access program. I also visited a roundtable at Microsoft which was a roundtable of early access program customers. So that we all shared in a roundtable what they tried, what we tried, what's working, what's not working. And it really depends. And I must say I was a bit surprised. Not all of them, especially not the majority, but some of the organizations, I'm not going to name them, but some of them, the senior management is really looking into, maybe we could do some cost cutting, and you can imagine how. So it really depends. But the majority of companies I work with, they're really looking into, well, we want to give our people, I have a different way of saying this. As an organization, you most likely look for the best employees, the best people, probably expensive ones, but you hire them to do some complex work, things they're really good at. But today they're really doing a lot of they're wasting their time on following up on tasks, on taking meeting notes, things like that. So that's also generating value, and we're all in the same area, especially if you're in the Microsoft 365 world. A lot of companies, a lot of consulting companies are looking for good profiles. So it's really important to keep your employees happy as well. So there are a lot of perspectives on that.
Yeah, I do wonder sometimes. You talk about the roles there, right? So sometimes you have assistants positions. Not just the chief exec's secretariat, but it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Sometimes if those jobs, and I know it's not always about job losses with AI. I think there are probably going to be a lot more new jobs that will get created that we haven't even heard of. So it is quite interesting, though. Yeah, if some of the organizations, especially with some of my customers, they use M365, but they use it in a kind of a traditional, conventional way, right? They're not really in the fifth gear, if you like, or sixth gear. And it does make you wonder that, if they're not really compatible yet, then how much liabilities lie ahead with the job losses, or getting somebody who's more productive and produce things. So
yeah. So maybe a last insight also based on this question I got from a customer is looking into buying over 1,000 Copilot licenses now, and we had a discussion about was an example of Excel. So if you have a Copilot license and you've tested it, well, it does already some cool things, but I can tell you a lot of more cool things are coming very soon. So you will be able to ask very complex things about formulas in a human way, and it will understand it. It will understand your data, and it will provide you the outcome. So the discussion was, are we not going to lose the skills of, well, being able to use Excel in a proper way, or how all of these formulas work? But in the end, it's more important, I think, that, well, you're not looking for people who can generate this formula. You're looking for people who can analyze the results and get to decisions faster. So also that is generating value. It's not about, oh, you're losing technical skills. No, you're getting to your insights much faster now. You could get there faster.
Yeah.
I had one other thing to add. I think it's been, firstly, really, really great session. I think you explained that that really well. I think I'll certainly take some tips away from that to how we talk to our clients around it. But I think what I found quite interesting, I think since the license, so prior to the changes to licensing, we found that quite a few of the customers, and we worked on a couple of clients that were on the early access, and some since November that you know bought the 300 and now wish they hadn't. But one of the things that we found quite a lot is organizations that had built the business case before they'd even seen the product in really in the flesh, had made a business case to buy 300. So they'd kind of made that case. And now they've suddenly gone, actually, we can just buy 8 or 9. So we've seen a massive tranche of customers buying very few licenses, giving them to IT, not really having a plan. And I think that we found that quite a challenge. I think if you commit up front, you're going to buy that, you're going to buy those 300, even 100 licenses. You invest that time to make it work. You build a plan, just like you would do with any kind of major IT program. What I found with this is now it's almost going back to that. It's a bit of a fad. So we're really trying hard. I mean, it's good that there's funding pots available for some of these things, but because a lot of customers are only buying a handful of them, it's not available. I mean, straight away, your points around things like Excel and those kind of things are the user. I think the user expectation is right up here. And because they kind of almost avoid what I would call the hero, the hero products like Teams and Outlook, right, which are absolute game changers for anybody on this that doesn't have that is looking at buying Copilot. I'd buy it for Teams. Like literally, I would buy it for Teams. It's absolutely phenomenal. But people go straight into things like PowerPoint, which again I would say is a little bit subpar, and Excel, and they really they try in there to do almost things that you would consider as being proper automation tasks rather than Copilot. So I was just kind of keen on your experience of those kind of things and how you kind of get people back onto focus, because it's really hard, right, when you give it to a bunch of techies.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's probably the worst question you wanted at the end of your session.
It was especially a long question.
It was, yeah. It was kind of a statement and a question, yeah.
Yeah, I do experience the same thing. So if you leave it up to IT, it's going to go south. You can just put your bets on that. So you need to handle or tackle this as a real project, as an optimization project or whatever. It's a really important one. And again, I can only talk about these things and spreading ideas. But again, like I said, the roundtable we had earlier this week, I think all of those larger organizations, they all came up with this sort of a plan. We need to have a center of excellence. We need to have ambassadors, change AdCar or ProSci, change methodology attached to it. So it's not a technical product, and that's also great to understand. You just have to buy a license, assign it, and you're off to go. But then you need to learn how to prompt. You need to learn where are, for example, the hero scenarios I talked about. Try not to leave it there at IT. And I have two opportunities that came towards us, towards the company, from customers that bought licenses, even quite a lot, where they left it to IT, and now they're saying, well, IT is not happy about it, so they're probably not going to extend their licenses. So please intervene and do the change approach properly. So valid arguments.
I think that's a really good point. So some of the things which we look to do is sort of assess people's I guess capability. Like, are they ready for Copilot? So have they got their data in M365? But then I think center of excellence, using that to help people understand what is possible, what is the other possible, and setting that expectation, as John mentioned in the chat there. So I couldn't thumbs it up, but absolutely, it is about setting expectations, isn't it? Because then people understand what they can do, what they can get, and then they don't expect like absolute crazy magic, which maybe we'll get there one day as well, but it's starting off and then building up to to get value from it.
Yeah, no, cheers, thanks.
I'll head over to and just give it to Simon, I think. So yeah, again, want to say thanks for coming up, Simon. And as I mentioned earlier, for those of you who are joining now, Simon's an MVP. He's worked with also M365 maturity model side of things articles, alongside with his colleague Simon Hudson, who's also with us here today. So great stuff, great community work, also speaker as well, and they also run M365 North user group. So definitely head there if you haven't been there already. But yeah, custom copilots and what are the options when we work with this? And I'm really interested things that are working and things that are not working. So very good to have that kind of field experience on this. So take it away, Simon.
Okay, thanks, Chirag. Right, so the agenda this evening is going to have an introduction, talk about the goals of the talk. If anybody's got any specific goals as well, I'll try and kind of merge those in. Talking about some terminology as well, just kind of bring people up to speed. We'll talk about some of the different options, Copilot Studio, Teams AI, library with the toolkit, how Azure AI Services fits in, Microsoft, the Copilot for Microsoft 365, graph connectors, talk about pros and cons, and then have a wrap up and answer any questions. But if you've got any questions, please pop them into the chat. I will, Chirag, if you mind just calling anything out, and I'll do my best to answer them. So yeah, let's get going. So thanks very much for taking your time out of your day this afternoon, this evening. I'm Simon Doy, founder of I Think 365, sort of CTO. I have many hats in the organization. I'm on Twitter, X, under @SimonDoy. Yeah, scary. I've been in sort of IT for 24 plus years now. Come from a solution architecture developer background. Got involved in SharePoint in 2006, and then sort of moved with it through the on-prem platform versions into Office 365, Microsoft 365. As Chirag mentioned, M365 North User Group leader. We are going to have our 10th year this year in September, which is pretty awesome. We had Penny join us all those years ago. A Viva Explorer and a core member of the maturity model for Microsoft 365 team. If you don't know anything about that, we do run monthly practitioner sessions. And really the aim of it is to help businesses leverage the Microsoft 365 platform and understand the impacts and benefits. And, we really, to be honest, the reason we're doing it is because we want people to be able to talk to the business leaders and get on projects and suggest projects which they want to do and are cool, and give value to the business. I've got a load of accreditations, and yeah, that's about it. So the goals for this session then. So this talk really stems from a talk that I did for my team, I think, and so I've kind of evolved it. I reached out to Chirag at the start of the year, and sort of said, I've got this talk. I'd like to evolve it. Would you have me? And he said, yeah, we can do a Copilot day. So the goals for this is to kind of go over some of the terminology, just make sure everyone's kind of up to speed, understands those. I apologize if I'm teaching how to suck eggs, but I found it useful talking through and taking my team through it. To take the other goal is to understand the options for extending and building custom copilots. To give you an overview of some of the pros and cons of each, give it some thought. I probably won't have all of them, but some ideas. Show you some demos, and then try and answer your questions. And I hope you find it valuable, and I'd love to get your feedback as well. So let's talk about why. Why would we want to have custom copilots? Why would we want to extend as well copilots, a Microsoft 365 Copilot? So, custom copilots, they really provide a solution for a specific purpose or problem. I mean, Rob, you mentioned about, I've got a set of questions which I want to come up with some answers for. And well, actually, that could be, you could, develop a prompt and an AI plugin which would allow you to kind of achieve that. But yeah, having a solution for a specific purpose, we're going to be talking about sort of law and copilots around law. and having that that specific role, purpose, problem which you're trying to solve, and have support when you're trying to do that activity. And this has a lot of value. I think it has huge value to a business, especially if you can bring it into the flow of work in teams and things, then that's brilliant too. Also, the other reason you might do it is that it may be that the generic Copilot might not be up to the job. There might be so much data that you're not getting the results which you really want. They're variable, or they're just rubbish. It's not giving you the answers you want because the data, there's too much data. And yes, you could refine it with more prompting, but that then takes more brain power. So being able to ground kind of the Copilot, the AI, to a specific set of data, your data, means you can get better results. The fourth reason that I talk about, and this is more the extension, is for Copilot in particular, for Microsoft 365, it can only reason over data that it has access to, and that is sort of by default anything that's in Microsoft 365, anything in SharePoint, Exchange. SharePoint and Exchange is the two big areas. And so then you might want to surface data from other systems, other line of business systems, like ServiceNow or Freshdesk or Azure DevOps, whatever it might be. So being able to bring that in. So that's sort of the reasons why. So terminology. We're going to talk about Copilots, of course, large language models, prompts, embeddings, RAG or retrieval augmented generation, semantic kernel, and the semantic index for Copilot. So let's just sort of delve into these in a bit more detail. So first of all, a Copilot is an assistant. It's something. It's not something that's an autopilot. It's not going to do everything for you. But a Copilot is an assistant that supports you in completing an activity. Maybe, and some of the demos you'll see, you're a lawyer, you're a fee earner, you're looking for help in how to tackle a case, or maybe you're looking for help in writing marketing copy. So it's helping you and supporting you to complete an activity or a role, and that's a custom Copilot. Large language models. I'm sure all of you are aware of these and what they are. We'll just go over it. So a large language model, an LLM, is a type of AI that is sort of being built using machine learning algorithms to generate natural language text and understand natural language text. And it's trained on large amounts of data, text data, so that it can use that to understand what is being asked, what the prompt is that's being given, and then create, sort of understand the intent and be able to generate natural language responses. And so this makes it really useful for applications such as Copilots and chatbots and language translation. So yeah, it's an exciting time. So next, I want to talk about prompts. So this is actually from the Microsoft Gentle Introduction to AI workshop. If you've sort of looking to get up to speed as well, want more detail, it's a really good session. It's on GitHub as well, and you can sort of see all the presentations, this just talks about some of the terms. So we've got the concept of a prompt. So we want to extract the mailing address from this email, and we're given a set of text, and we've got text input, which provides the context to what the engine is expecting, the completion, which is the output that the model generates based on that prompt. And then we've got tokens, which are the words which the AI needs to process to and understand to be able to create that completion. So it's just some terms there. I'm going to move on to embeddings. And so, when we talk about RAG, this is the conversion of text into a vector, a set of numbers, a text vector. So we generally use an AI model to do that. And an example might be this to be or not to be gets turned into a number representation, so that what we can do then is allow that vector representation to be compared to a database of vectors to find those similar results. And within the OpenAI world, and we often use this text embedding ADA model, which allows us to convert that text into this vector so that we can compare results. So we're talking about a database of vectors. Well, that kind of nicely leads into the semantic index for Copilot. So the semantic index for Copilot and a semantic index is really the basis of what Copilot for Microsoft 365 is, how it is able to interpret and create relationships between objects which the computer cannot obviously understand that there are relationships there. So the semantic index basically brings together keyword and a vector index, and really it's all about giving better search results, more relevant search results. So we can generate, using vectors, relationships where they're not obvious. So for example, we could say, well, there's a relationship with the weather and rain and a raincoat or an umbrella. So then we could ask, what should I wear today? And it knows that it's going to rain, so it suggests put on a coat and take an umbrella. And the semantic index for Copilot is really taking that search to the next level. So it's bringing together user-specific context into the search results. And I've got an example here which I ran through yesterday. So one of my team, Yvonne, I was looking for our cash flow. So I'm looking for a document about our cash flow. I think Yvonne created it. Can you find it for me? And so using keyword searches, the more traditional search results, popping that into SharePoint search, I didn't get any results. I mean, to be honest, I'm giving it too much. It can't understand the intent, but it's just showing you that you can't, with a traditional keyword base, we're not going to find content with those words. But with the semantic index, it's able to know that when I'm say Yvonne, I'm meaning Yvonne Cookson, and that she shared a document with me, and it's able to find those documents. So there's 2 documents there, and give me links in M365 chat for that example. So the semantic index is just helping us to get better search results and get more information and have search results which are key to us as individuals. So that is the semantic index for Copilot. And then these things, they all kind of come together in this, we saw when I first heard RAG, I thought, what is RAG? Everyone kept mentioning this RAG thing as if and everyone knew about it. I had no idea. And then this retrieval augmented generation pattern is sort of the common way now that we take a natural language response and return back the search results in a natural language way, and I'm very proud of this animation. So we might in this example, we've got our app and somebody, it might be Microsoft Teams, might be a chatbot on the mobile phone, and someone puts in a question, a natural language question. It gets sent to the backend tier, and then that then forwards on to your GPT model, and that natural language is is processed, and the intent from the user is then understood and set as embeddings, and then those embeddings are then sent over to Azure AI Search, which then queries against that content, and we get back a table of results. And rather than sending those table results straight back to the app, it goes back to Azure OpenAI, to your GPT model, and then that's turned from those results probably adding in some context from its model as well to give you back a response where, it's in a nice natural language form, and you can go, okay, yeah, I understand that. I can consume that much better than maybe just getting that set of search results back from the Azure AI search. And Azure AI search, we can index all sorts of different data sources as we're seeing there, and we'll show some of that in the demos. Okay. The next term is the semantic kernel. And particularly when I started looking at the Teams AI libraries, you sort of see these SK. We'll see this when we look at how we create the prompt for Teams AI. The semantic kernel, it's a library, a Microsoft library, and it's an orchestration engine. So what it does, it allows developers, us to describe our functions that we've built as plugins, and using attributes and decorators, we can sort of explain to the semantic kernel what our plugin does, what our function does, and the parameters that need to be passed into it. And then that allows the AI to decide, based on the user intent from the prompt, should it use those functions? And if it thinks it should, then it can call those plugins, and you can chain those plugins to achieve even more magic. And the semantic kernel is the key to this. And you'll see this there's a Copilot, one of the preview features, is talking about what's the term? It's like dynamic function binding, and it allows the AI to decide which plugins it should use. And this, I think, is really, really powerful. And I'm still learning on this, but it's a really interesting area, and there's some links to the semantic kernel, so definitely have a look. So we've talked over some of the terminology. I don't know if there's any questions off the back of that at all, but let's go into the options for building Copilots, let's get into the real meat of the session. So these are the options which we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Microsoft Teams AI library, which is embedded as part of the Teams toolkit. Microsoft Copilot Studio, used to be called Power Virtual Agent, but it's still part of the Power Platform. Not really an option for building Copilot, but a way of extending your Copilots built in Teams AI and the Copilot Studio using the Azure OpenAI and the Azure AI services. And then we've also got the Microsoft Graph Connector as a way of extending the Microsoft or Copilot for Microsoft 365. So let's go into Microsoft Copilot Studio. And, I'm going to basically go straight into some demos, but there are sort of three ways of options of building Copilots in the Copilot Studio. So like I say, Copilot Studio is part of the Power Platform. You are getting, it's licensed through having a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license. And there are three ways of building components in it. So we've got this this generative AI, this unknown intent. So in Copilot Studio and Power Virtual Agents, as it used to be, you have topics, and there's a special topic which is the unknown intent, where it doesn't understand what to do, so it passes it into that topic, and we can then use a generative AI action to go and work our magic. There's conversational plugins. So these are ways of extending the plugins within Microsoft, Copilot for Microsoft 365, and they're very similar. They again use the Power Automate and sort of the bot framework to deliver results. And then there are AI plugins, and I will be honest, the AI plugins I struggle with at the moment. That they're in preview, and yeah, you can create them, but you don't seem to be able to edit them, and I don't recommend them at the moment. But let's go into a demo. So let's let's go into a demo and show some stuff. Okay, so right, I'll get the right window up. Yeah, it keeps trying to sign me out, so hopefully it will not. Okay, so one of the first things is that these custom copilots, they don't have to be in Teams. They don't, they could be embedded in SharePoint. This law-based copilot, how it works or how it's set up is that we've got a document library with a load of Word documents. These Word documents are containing legal precedents which were downloaded from the House of Lords sort of judgments and put in here into this library. And then, and I'll take you through how we built this. But we've then told this copilot about that library. And so what I can do in here, I've got this window. You have to sort of log in for the first time, which we've already logged in, and I can start asking it questions. Okay, so I can say, imagine I'm a lawyer. I'm trying to think, how do I tackle? How would I go about defending a duty of care case? And it's going to go away, talk to the generative AI model that it's got, and return back results using just that data. So only the data that's available in that document library, and using the model that it's got as well. My understanding is it's still ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo that this is using. And we've got links to the documents, so we've got those citations, but we get back a response there. So if I was to kind of go through how into how this was built, so if I flip over to Copilot Studio, so all of this happens if you go to copilotstudio.microsoft.com. I've got a development team environment, so when you're building these copilots, then I recommend you have different Power Platform environments. You can build them and add them into solutions and use solutions and take those through your different environments as you deploy from dev to test to production. But if I just sort of go back to the beginning, I'm going to go into the overview. You've got this generative AI here, and in this example, what I've done, I can add in just a SharePoint or OneDrive resource. I can also add a public website, and this is kind of the starting point. And what that does is, if I go into my topics and go to system, then we've got this conversational boosting, this unknown intent that I was talking about. And this creates a topic, and then we've got this this flow, which we can start to kind of work with. And we've got this trigger, so on unknown intent, and we've got this create generative answers, and this is what's sort of doing the magic. If I click on edit here, I can then see the SharePoint website that it's using to reason over, and down the bottom here, I can also actually, rather than using SharePoint, I could go and start to call an Azure OpenAI service, and I'll show you an example of that next. But it's quite straightforward to set up. Just be aware that if we don't get an answer, we're going to go through this all other conditions, and sometimes you can get sort of routed to sort of a fail back topic. So you might want to kind of manage this and put some code in here, but this will allow us to get that content and that reasoning from the GPT 3.5 model with our data, and we can embed that in SharePoint. We can also embed that in Teams. So let's go to another example. Let me find my team. I've got too many windows. Okay. So this one here, so this is now a chat in Teams. This is a different Copilot, and I'll sort of delve into that. But it gives sort of, it can give some different results as well. So if I kind of ask it similar questions, so how should I approach defending a contract law, the contract law case? So sometimes, as Rob was talking about, this is actually talking to OpenAI. This is talking to a GPT-4 model, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. And it does seem to be, I think, because I'm on a low price tier, because it's quite expensive to run some of these models. I ran out of my credit on Monday night as I was preparing for this session. So okay, well, fortunately it's working. It's been kind to us. So now, we are getting this response back, that it's giving us an approach to defending a contract law case and some steps there. Let's see about asking it which legal precedents and which legal precedents should I think about when talking about contract law? So I'll send that. So this Copilot is, the data that's embedded is a similar set of data that's in that SharePoint library. So now it's going to pull out those two legal precedents which I'm uploaded. So it's now starting to give us information about our data. The first prompt didn't really give us anything specific, but this one is now pulling out particular legal precedents which we could start investigating and using when we're defending against contract law. So how is this one built? Well, this is slightly different. So I'm just going to flip over to another environment. I will not save that. And I've got another Copilot here. I'm running this in the US. So I'll be honest, this took me a while to get this going. And I started thinking, well, is it because everything needs to be running in the US? So I ended up creating a US environment and attaching to all GPT models in the US. The answer is no, it wasn't that, but I did get it going. So again, we've got a similar conversational boosting. And again, we've got a little bit more going on here. So we've got the unknown intent. We're also giving some feedback this time. So we're actually giving using this typing activity so that when the user's using it, they can start to get back, the chatbot's actually thinking about it. So using this typing activity, which is great. And particularly because it does take some time to get those AI models running, then it gives the user an idea that it hasn't just stopped. We'll then run into the generative answers. And if I go into the data source here, this time we're not using public websites or SharePoint. We're talking to this Azure OpenAI service. So the way that you kind of create these is through the OpenAI service, and it will create then a connection to Azure OpenAI. Now, it's the only way to get these connectors to come into your environment. And these are still a bit of a black box in the Power Platform. So, you know, if I was to kind of go in and try and actually look at one of the other connections, I can't see any information about it. And I think this is one of the challenges at the moment. They're still working on this. You know, that some of the, you know, one of the cons I would say is some of this is it feels like a bit of a black box. If we go into the connection properties, in here, we can we provide our model. We provide which API version. That API version is really specific. So you can see here we're using the 1st of June 2023, the preview. If we change that to any of the other API versions, which you can use with the Azure OpenAIs, it just breaks everything. And you don't actually get any response back. You just get this message saying that there was no search data. I was helping one of the other MVPs over the weekend because they were having the same problem, and yeah, this is, you know, what fixed it for mine. So we can then give it, you know, how many tokens should be used in response, what the temperature is. So I should probably add this in my terminology. The temperature is between 0 and 1, and 0 being don't make anything up, and 1 be make everything up, be very, very creative. And then what we're doing here is we're telling it about our data. So we're connecting to this GPT-4 model, but we need data. And so what we've got here is a SharePoint index. So it's using that same document library, and we've created an index in Azure AI search, and we're then passing in, you know, what the title of the file is, what the URL is to it, what the file name is, and then the content. And what gives this a bit more reasoning power is that Azure AI search can create its own semantic index, so like semantic index for Copilot, and so we can ask it to use that in its query. So you can have two options here. You can have semantic, or you can have simple, and simple will go to more of a, you know, a keyword based strategy. So not as you're not going to get such great results back. The system message allows us to kind of describe to the GPT model how it should behave, and, you know, we can also kind of get it to change how you know, how it responds. Does it just only respond based on the data content there or not? So this is, you know, a little bit different. So, and this I do feel gets, you know, better results than using the generative AI function in the Copilot Studio, using kind of the data sources which aren't OpenAI. So let me sort of go back to that. Have I covered everything that I was going to? Okay, sorry, I haven't. The last thing then is just talking about here, we've got the ability to extend Microsoft Copilot. And this is where, you know, we talked about in those three options, we can create conversational plugins. And this is how we can start extending Copilot for Microsoft 365. And we can use this. So very, you know, very, very similar structures, you know, but the trigger is Microsoft Copilot. And so you can then take it through that create generative answers, and then output the response through this mechanism. Now, what I do need to talk about is, and I've got some links, and I'll share these slides, but there are some steps to enabling the Microsoft 365 chat, the chat app in Teams, so you can have custom plugins. So the conversational plugins, the AI plugins, those allow you to extend Copilot for Microsoft 365. So if I find my prompt, and I might just have to grab that again, where is it? Okay, so I'm just going to bring this up. I'll just bring this over. So there are a couple of things you need to do. So there is you need to be able to have custom plugins for Microsoft 365 chat. You need to send a request. You create a support ticket requesting for the custom plugins to be enabled in your tenant. And I don't know if you noticed, but this is the M365 chat app. This is not the Copilot one that's in Teams, so that they're two different ones. And what happens then is you'll see that this box down here will allow you to kind of select those plugins which you have. So, you know, by default, you'll have this ability to switch on web content. That'll be there already. But once you get the Copilot plugin preview enabled, what it does is it creates a new app in your Microsoft Teams app, which you call the Microsoft 365 and Copilot Studio app, and then this allows you then to switch on and off the plugins for your for your chat in my Copilot for Microsoft 365. And so what I can do is I can then start asking questions of it. What do you know about duty of care? And it will then start to give me responses, which is going to be using your content within Microsoft 365, and then plus any plugins. And as we talked about that semantic kernel, it's going to use the descriptions which you give your plugins to decide which plugins to go. Now you'll notice here that there's this little box which comes at the end, and this can be switched on using the developer on. So dash developer on will allow you to then get ideas about which plugins that it's used. So let's click on that. So it's, we've had the legal response, and actually it hasn't matched it, to be honest, in this example, but you can use that to see what plugins have been used. So I'll probably need to improve my descriptions, but it's a nice little tip when you're building these chat plugins for my Copilot for Microsoft 365. You can, we'll go into the team side more, but that's really how they get surfaced, and it takes a while. So when you first get the request come through and they enable it, and then you sort of publish your first plugin, it can take sort of 4 or 5 hours. I mean, it took over a day for it to appear in my tenant, but once you've got them up and running and you start publishing them, then they get updated really quickly. So you're not having to wait around. Cool. Okay. So that's the demos. Okay. So moving on, let's have a chat about the pros and cons.
Quick question, Simon.
Yes, go for it. Yeah, of course.
Got a question. Well, it's in the chat from Richard. The first demo that you did embedded on the SharePoint page.
Yes.
It was, right? And that
yes, it was. Yeah.
So it was in SharePoint, but can you render that in Teams?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So yeah, that's that's the same. Well, it's another Copilot, but yeah, you can. So the way that you do that, you've got in the settings here, you've got these things called channels, and so this is where you select which user interfaces your Copilot can be within. So
awesome.
Go into
That's great.
Yeah. And so and then you go into availability options, you publish that. What it will do is it will create an app in Teams, and then you go into the admin Teams screen, and then you can then make that available to everyone. So yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you.
Okay. So some of the pros using Copilot Studio. Yeah, it's really fast to build those custom Copilots. Quickly you can start accessing and grounding your Copilot with data from SharePoint, from websites, but also then if you want to do things which are a bit more sophisticated, you've got that ability to call those Azure OpenAI services. You can build plugins for M365 Chat or Copilot for Microsoft 365, and then you can hook into the Power Platform and use Power Automate, but also use the kind of the bot framework flows as well to be able to build and route to different topics. And it's really, really powerful. And then using Power Automate as well, it's easy to talk to third-party systems and call into APIs using the Power Platform connectors. Some of the cons, you've got licensing implications. You get licenses for with your Copilot for Microsoft 365 SKUs, but if you need it for a wider audience who don't have those, then you'll need to buy tenant wide licenses. And like I say, debugging them can be a bit tricky, particularly with that Azure OpenAI, and I do hope that comes better. But some of the things which I was looking at to try and work out what was happening when we were getting this results of no search results back was you can connect the Copilot to App Insights, and it was still giving nothing back. It was just telling me that there was no search results back. The plugins, the AI plugins, are in preview. The Copilot extensibility is in preview as well, and I really struggle with the AI plugins. Once you create them, it's difficult. I haven't found a way to delete them and changing them. So I'm sure there is work going on to make those better. And there's definitely some issues around some of the Azure OpenAIs just getting it. But once you get it working, it does really, it does work well. But when you're first getting up and running, sometimes you just need to wait for things to kind of get set up and get working. So I guess under the hood, there's a lot going on there. And depending on how busy and how the systems are, if there's more load, then it might take a little bit longer to get that going. But yeah, and some of the other pros is like you say, you can have it those Copilots available in Teams, in SharePoint. One of the things which is nice about Teams is it's single sign-on, so it understands the user is and logs you in, so that's nice. Whereas the SharePoint one, it's you've got to log in and you get a code, sort of like a little bit like a device code login. So yeah, okay. I'm going to just sort of go over some of these Azure AI services because it's kind of a precursor to the Teams AI library. So let's go into that. Oh, if I can go the right direction. So Microsoft and OpenAI have got this partnership. These again, these slides have come from the Gentle Introduction to AI. So yeah, we've got this strong partnership with Microsoft and OpenAI. We've got a number of different models. So we've got GPT 3.5, GPT-4. We've got ChatGPT, Codex, and DALL-E 3. So the GPT is around interpreting text and being able to respond and predict what the text should be to come back. ChatGPT is around conversations and chatbots. Codex, is around is like GitHub Copilot, being able to use it to create code from a prompt, and then DALL-E 3 is around creating images from a text prompt. So some examples of those. We've got I'll write a tagline for an ice cream shop, and we get the response back. I used this for my daughter was looking to it's her birthday in December, and she wanted to she, like every year we have a treasure hunt for her birthday where we hide all the presents around, but this year she decided that she wanted to have riddles. So then I had to come up with riddles for each of the places where I'd hidden a present. Anyway, Copilot for Microsoft 365 to the rescue, and it gave me some great responses, and it took me about 5 or 6 minutes to go through, and yeah, she absolutely loved it. So we've got that GPT model prompt. Then we've got ChatGPT with I'm having trouble getting my Xbox turned on, and it's giving you responses back and having that chat scenario. And then we've got the codex, where we've got the prompt for a SQL query. We're asking it to create a SQL query. We're giving it some context around what the table structure looks like, and it gives us back that nice select star from customers. I think some of the DBAs might not be happy with the select star, but and then the fourth one then is DALL-E, and I want to create an image using a ball of fire. So here, here we've got these different models which we have. Now, how does that fit into the Azure AI and the overall kind of ecosystem and the Microsoft ecosystem? So, at the top, we've got Microsoft 365, we've got Microsoft Dynamics 365, we've got all the new Copilots for sales and for service. And, it's not, those are using the Azure AI services. We also could build our own, applications as well, partner solutions or enterprise solutions. Build our own .NET or Angular or React apps, and build AI custom copilots on those. And then if we look at that underneath, we've then got the application platform around the Power Platform. So, Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Copilot Studio, bringing those together, using AI Builder with those to as well, to kind of leverage the AI capabilities. And then we've got the various services. I really should change that cognitive search. So that's the Azure AI search now. We've got a bot service, which we're using with both Copilot Studio, but also the Teams applications as well. We've got the cognitive search, or Azure AI search, which allows us to index content from lots of different places, and then create that semantic index, which we can then use to get results back. Forms Recognizer is around being able to understand document structures and pull out content and metadata. We use that with SharePoint to be able to extract metadata from maybe invoices. Video Indexer allowing us to create transcripts and from video. Metrics Advisor being able to look at metrics and highlight key anomalies, and then Immersive Readers using allowing us to have accessibility, greatly improve our accessibility experiences for users. And then we've got the models underneath with GPT 4.5 Turbo with vision, so we can kind of allow us to be able to give an image, and then it can extract what the names of the objects are. The speech stuff is really interesting, actually. I was using this the weekend. So in there we can create an AI speech voice from text, and you've got a lot of flexibility. There's something like 400 different voices you can have, and you can tweak and change the intent, and it's really, really powerful. Language, I think this is really, really interesting. We see this in Teams now, don't we, where you can on the fly translate from one language into another. So examples I've seen is taking Mandarin and converting that into English, being able to use the tools for decision making. And then of course you've got the Azure OpenAI services, where we can leverage the GPT 4 3.5 models, some of those text embedding models, and underneath all of that we've got this Azure machine learning platform, and you can see sort of where the users of these platforms are on the right hand side. So how are we doing for time? Okay, so we're
good.
Yeah, okay. So
we're just give a couple of minutes. I think just going to wrap up soon.
Okay, cool. So the Microsoft Teams AI Toolkit. So this allows us, so the Microsoft Teams AI is a set of libraries. They allow you to extend your Teams bot, your Teams applications, to then use Azure OpenAI, and they've got there's some really nice features in there around being able to track the chat history and use that, and remember that, so that your chatbot can can sort of leverage the history with Azure OpenAI and with those GPT models to get better results back and have that continual context of what the user is asking. This is using the semantic kernel behind the scenes, and I'll go into a demo here. So let's switch over to my VS Code. And I'm just going to fire this up. So, right. So what we've got here is an application. So this originated as the 20 questions sample. So the Teams AI libraries, or the team behind it, have created a number of different samples, so you can start to kind of learn how to kind of leverage this platform. But when you if you are going to your extensions to kind of get started, you need to install the Teams toolkit. So install the Teams toolkit. You can then go and create applications from here. You can create a messaging extension. You can create a bot from here, and then what that will do is scaffold out your Teams application. And what we get is with Teams AI, with the AI library, is we get these prompts. And then we get a folder in there, and this is where kind of you end up really working with the AI side of Teams AI. So of course it's going to fire that up. Let me just go back to File Explorer. So in the chat we've got ways to describe our plugin, which model we're going to use. There's lots of different completion types, and so we're using the chat one here. We can again have, we've got the things like temperature, which we can use. What's the number of maximum tokens? What's the maximum kind of tokens which we can take from somebody's prompt and inject into the GPT model? We've got this ability to augment as well. So this is one of the nice things about the Teams AI, is that we can create these data sources. So they've got this abstraction for data called data sources. So we can then bring our data in, and we can change this augmentation type to then use that to bring that information in. And if I then just scroll down, the other part of it is this SK prompt. So the SK, the semantic kernel, this allows us to describe our prompt, what we want it to do. So in this example, I'm sort of saying, the following is a conversation with an AI assistant called Mr. Legal. Mr. Legal is an expert in legal and law matters, an assistant that is used by legal fee earners within law firms to help them understand how they can tackle their legal matters. We're telling the GPT model that the voice of Mr. Legal should be authoritative and professional. And then this is really important. You need to tell it to base the response using the following text. And then also I'm asking it to include the citations as well, because I want it to bring back, where it got this information from. And then what happens is when we fill out our user prompt, it's going to then add that underneath, and then use all of that with the GPT model to give us an answer. So if we look at where this code all sort of starts into is in this index.ts. We have these action planners. This action planner is it's kind of is where all the magic happens, really. The default prompt, this is linking, really, reading the information from this folder. And you can see here we could have different prompts. So if you're trying different things out, you could have different folders in here with different configs and different skprompt.txt. So you can sort of play around, and there'll be some links to how to get started with this. The other thing that I built, because I wanted to bring my own data, and is I wanted to be able to call into the cognitive AI search, or the Azure AI search. So I've created my own sort of data source, and I will at some point get this into GitHub so people can use it. But what this allows is it allows us to bring together our data and the response and the Teams AI library. So I know that the Teams AI library team are working on a version of this, and I'm sure it'll be much better than mine. But if you're welcome to use this and let me know how you get on. But basically, what this does, this allows us to call into those AI, Azure AI APIs, and then call this get chat completion. So I probably shouldn't have done that. I should go further down, and then give us back this response. So I can call this get chat completions, and then pass in the fact that I want it to go and speak to the Azure cognitive search and where that lives and which index. And in this example, we're not using SharePoint, we're using Azure Blob Storage and the content in there. And one of the reasons why that is that the SharePoint indexes are still in preview. They've been in preview for a while, whereas the Azure Blob Storage isn't, and people are using that. So it allows us to.
Simon, we'll have
yes.
We'll have to start wrapping up. We're out of time.
Okay, no problem.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I would love to watch more. I think so. We'll definitely get you in again. But yeah, if you can start wrapping up, that would be great, please.
I will wrap up. Okay. Right. Let me wrap up here then. So so some of the pros and cons. There's lots of samples. It uses semantical kernel. It's it's really cool. It's very interesting to look into that. Debugging is a lot easier. There's no built-in support for Azure AI Search, but I've got an example there. But it does take time to understand the semantic kernel, and it's much slower to deliver than the custom Copilot. So there's a slower ramp-up time. I will just go through all of these, and then I'll just come to the end. So there's some resources there, and I'll share these via you, Chirag.
That's great. Thank you, Simon.
Copilot Connection. There's a great session just come out by Zoe and Kevin around the extensibility story. It's just Kevin's just doing that, thanks for joining. And just any questions?
That's brilliant. Thanks, Simon. Yeah, definitely got a lot to share, so that's impressive. Appreciate that, and all the demos were good. I think we could have stayed on more, but we're out of time. But no, definitely, I think. Yeah, and we'll get the feedback to you as well, so at least you can get onto that. But yeah, and I think it's been a great sessions today we've had so far around the Copilot side of things. So. Brilliant, good questions, some good sharing during the break time. And yeah, I just want to say big thanks to Pieter early on, sharing about the ROI side of things on Copilot, and then of course yourself, Simon, as well. So appreciate giving up your time to be here, and stay tuned, attendees, for tuning in, and we'll try and get some more sessions online, and in the meantime, just stay tuned with meetup.com/M365 UK. So with that, I'll say thanks to everyone and have a good evening, and until next time. And do the experiments, learn more from Copilot.
Have a great week, so thanks, Chirag.
Thanks, Simon.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.